All right, let's do this. Hi, everyone. Welcome. I am Morgan Science. I'm the product education manager here at Jotform, and I'm very excited to see you here today. Looks like a few more people still trickling in here. We are here for the last session in our Form Builder Basics webinar. Today, we are covering thank you pages and emails. So over the past month, we have been highlighting lesser known features and functionality of our flagship product, or the things we get a lot of questions about. Basically, we want to make sure that anybody who needs or wants information about how best to use our form builder has the opportunity to access that. So that is what we're here to talk about today. So as I mentioned today, we are covering thank you pages and emails, so the things people see after they submit to your form. Now, you're probably aware that these exist, but you may not be aware that you can pretty much fully customize both thank you pages and emails. That includes changing the text and overall design for each. When it comes to thank you pages, you can also add action buttons that trigger an action for somebody to complete, or you can send people off to a website. And when it comes to emails, you also have the opportunity to change recipients and set when and how the emails appear to people. Now, you may want to think about these for a couple of different reasons. So first, by default, your forms will have a thank you page and they'll have an email notification to you and an autoresponder to your users. And again, these are clean and nice by default. They serve the purpose of thanking people and letting them know what they submitted. But they're often underutilized as an opportunity to further engage with people. So if you are using your thank you pages and emails to full capacity, you can, again, encourage people to interact with you further. You can direct them to a specific action or outcome. And you can even automate workflows on your end and reduce efforts on your end by prompting somebody to do something rather than having to manually go after them to do that. So that's what I'll be covering in today's session. And without further ado, I will go out into Jotform and we can check that out. All right. So very briefly, I am starting our demo here on my My Forms page. My Forms is where you land when you log into Jotform. So from here, you can create a new form with the orange button. Up here, you can toggle to other Jotform products. So if you wanted to see all of your data, you could navigate to tables. If you have apps, you can navigate to My Apps to see all of your apps, etc. And in the center of the page here are all of my active forms that I can take action on however I need from here. So I'm going to click on example one here. I started numbering these so they'd be easier for me to track as I go through sessions. So example one, and I'm going to hit edit form to pull this up in the form builder. And here we have a webinar registration form that should look similar to what you experienced when you registered for this webinar, though not exact. But very similar, straightforward, name, email, title, industry, and do you have any questions? Now, again, we're here in the form builder, and we've gone over this a bit in the past couple of sessions in this series, but for anybody who is, this is your first webinar, brief overview here. On the build tab of the form builder, which is where we are here, this is where you'll control what the form actually looks like, and it looks pretty much identical to your users as it does as you're building it. Any changes you make happen in real time, and you can preview here to see what your users see in the upper right-hand corner anytime you need to. You can add form elements from the left here, including payments and widgets. On the right-hand side of the page, you have all of your control over colors, fonts, spacing, etc. And then any fields, once they're on the form, can be moved by dragging and dropping. You can also delete these fields, and you have properties for each field as well. The settings tab, the next tab up at the top here, is where you can control everything that happens behind the scenes in your form. So things that are very important to the form, but that are not necessarily things that people are going to see as they're filling out the form. And we'll be hanging out here, so I'll come back to that. But I also wanted to mention the Publish tab. That's where you'll go to share your form. You have a ton of different options, whether it's embedding in a website or sharing a link or sharing a QR code, publishing to social media, etc. Okay, so back on the settings tab, again, settings is where you can control everything that happens behind the scenes with your form. So a couple of weeks ago, we talked about widgets and integrations, for example. So you can connect your form with another product that you work with so that you can trigger workflows and you don't have to be as manually involved. Saves a lot of time and effort. Last week, we talked about conditional logic and how to customize your forms so that users see forms that are specific to answers they're giving. And again, today we're talking about thank you pages and emails. So sort of the bread and the conditional logic sandwich here, visually speaking. So we have thank you pages right below that and emails right above it. And we're going to start with thank you pages. And I will bounce into emails and then we'll come back to emails at the end. I want to start by talking about how you can customize the text that you see on these pages. So again, this is very similar, or this is what you would see by default. I haven't made any changes to this thank you page. This is the text you'll see by default. Thank you, your submission has been received. There's an envelope with a check mark here, pretty good visual representation of something having been submitted. So clean, again, clean and easy, but not really doing much other than that. And certainly works, but if you want to do more, you can. You can change text just by, the same way you would expect to change text otherwise. So you can just type, delete, etc. And in addition to editing the text itself, you can edit the way the text looks. So up at the top here, this bar that I think is kind of a cross between black and navy blue, from left to right, you can change the font. You can change the font size. You can make text bold or italicized. You can change text alignment, and you can change the text color from here as well. In addition to changing the text, you can also add in a link. So if you want to use this thank you page and also use it as a place where you can link to your landing page, for example, maybe you are asking people to give you donations and you want to link them to your website where you talk more about what your charity is doing. You can include a link anywhere within that thank you page as well. And you can also include an image. So this is an image right here, but you can add in an additional image. You can remove this image and have this image from up here be the only image. So you have flexibility around visuals on this page as well. And then the last thing I want to point out as far as what you can add to the page is a table. So table creates sort of a grid that you can build your layout for your thank you page in. I'll talk more about that when we look at emails in just a minute here. But basically, this is a grid, and you can add various things into the grid, whatever it is that you need. I talked about everything on this row except two things. So there is source code here that you can edit if you have coding experience and want a little bit more granular control over the look and feel of this page. And you can also pop this out full screen so that you can view this and make changes here at a bigger view, make it a little bit easier for you to see. You'll just pop that back in by hitting the reverse button once you're there. And also wanted to mention that you can always pull in fields from the form as well. So if you wanted to customize this and say, thank you, person's name, and they filled out name on the form, you can add in the field name right there. Thank you, name, your submission has been received. It's a little bit more personalized from there. Okay, so I'm going to bounce into emails right now, and we're just going to look at one of these by hitting the edit button here, just so I can show you the similarities before I go back into thank you pages. So first things first, you can see here along the top bar, we have the exact same options. So you can control the text that you have and the way the text looks in the same way you can control it for thank you pages, whether that's changing the fonts, changing alignments, adding in links, adding in other images, etc. All of that can be controlled in the same way from here. In addition to that, I mentioned that table that you can add in. Now, by default, this is what a notification email looks like. But if you're creating from scratch, this is something that you can create using the table. So you may notice here, for example, that there are columns and rows. Some of them on the outside are gray, then in the middle, they're white. And then there are rows here where it's like a field name and then the field response. All of that is built within a table. So this is a large table. Some of the background color has been changed. Then we have the smaller table in the middle. So again, it gives you a bit more control over the way this whole thing looks. I'm not going to get into it further than that, but you can get pretty complicated with that, as you might be able to tell here. When you click on this button here, in addition to being able to customize the size of the table, well, Actually, I'll show you that in thank you pages. You can also customize colors, etc. And then from within a table, if you click anywhere within the table, you'll also have control over the table from there. So changing the size of it, deleting sections of it, that's this option here, adding rows above or below, adding columns to the left or the right, etc. So you can sort of build on it once you've already added it. Back to thank you pages here. Let's see. Here we go. So when I click on the table here, here you can control the size of the table, and then you can control properties as well. That includes colors, etc. Okay, so we talked about the overall text for your thank you pages and emails. In addition to that, with thank you pages here, you can change the general design. So again, what we were looking at initially was the default layout for this. You can change this image. So if you still want an image that represents that this has been received, that checkmark image, you have that option. Again, a bunch of options here. But you also can go up to the upper right-hand corner here and hit that gear widget, and that opens up a layout menu. So it's a similar place to where you would look at how to customize your forms. In the same spot, you can customize your layouts. There are a number of other default layouts that you can use as is or use as a starting point. So very similar. For example, if I switch to this, this is the general layout, but I've added a different image here. So we have different images we can choose from. We can also upload our own or choose from something we've already added. If I go back to this, I can also remove this as well just by hitting remove image. So from here, I can add another image here, or I can add secondary images. If you wanted your logo, for example, on the thank you page, you could add that. And if you deleted that little checkmark icon and you regret it, you can click sort of in that same spot and that menu will pop up again. The last thing I wanted to point out here are action buttons. So this is the last way to customize a thank you page specifically. So action buttons are 4 different button options that prompt users to take an action either with this form or with another form. And again, I mentioned in the intro that these can be a great way to continue to engage with people, to encourage them to spend more time interacting with you. And these action buttons are a great way to do that. So here we have the option to fill again. If you use that button, the person will click that button to go and fill the form out from the beginning. So an example that I use pretty commonly here is summer camps. There are often parents registering multiple children for summer camp. So they finish one registration, they can click that button and go automatically back to the beginning. They don't need to follow up with you to ask how to get back to the form. You don't need to follow up with them. It's all, all right there, makes it easy for them to find. Similarly, if you would like to give people the option to edit their submission, there is an edit submission option as well. Instead of filling out the same form, you can also prompt users to fill out another form. So another common example I use here in this case is HR onboarding. There are often multiple different forms that employees need to fill out. If each form links to the next form in the process, again, that eliminates the need for you to have to manually follow up with somebody, and it gives them a little bit more control over where in the process they are at any given time. Finally, the last option here is to download PDF. And that PDF can be any number of things. So you can upload a PDF that's associated with your form. So for summer camp, for example, maybe it's a camp schedule. You can also have a field on your form where your users can upload a PDF. And there can be a PDF of your form content. So if you want to allow people to be able to download a PDF as an action button, you can choose from any of those options. Okay. So that is all of the thank you page. The one other thing I wanted to mention here that instead of a thank you page altogether, you can redirect people to an external link after submitting. So with the thank you page, you can always include a link, again, if you want to thank them and direct them to your homepage. But if instead you wanted to just automatically redirect them somewhere else, you can click this button as well. And all you need to do is enter the URL. So here I've entered Wikipedia. We can preview the form and let's pretend that I fill this out. I hit submit and it automatically takes me to Wikipedia. All right. 1 second. If you've joined me for the rest of the series, you know I've been battling a cough for a while and I finally got a bunch of medicine, but doesn't do much good when I have to talk for 20 to 30 minutes straight. So bear with me. Take a sip of water here. I am getting better. Okay, so now that we've gone through all of that for the thank you pages, I do want to show just a couple of examples of something I built. I used this real estate open house feedback form last week. So if you were here last week, this may look familiar to you. The intended purpose would be that this would be a feedback form after somebody is visiting an open house. So they're filling in their information and then they're rating the house. What did they like? What didn't they like? Now here I've customized a thank you page. So you can see that it matches the form in design. It's got that same orange border. I've chosen that orange check mark instead of the generic green one to, again, match the design. I've changed the language here to say thanks for your feedback, something a little bit more casual. And I've also included two additional things. So first, a link to whatever the realtor's website is. Let's say they want to encourage people to buy a house with them specifically. They know people looking at open houses are often, not always, but often looking for houses. So maybe they want to encourage them to go with their agency. Here we can use that link to go out to the agency site. In addition to that, I'm linking to another form here. So I have the action form or the action button to go to another form. And so again, this is a way to encourage people to work with the particular realtor that's staging this open house. So this is an additional form where people can sign up to work with that realtor. And all they need to do is click this button and they're directed to that form. Another example here, let me close this out. Here we have a thank you page for a dental appointment form. So somebody fills out the form to request an appointment. And here again, I've customized this. We'll reach out to you and I have pulled in the phone number from the form. So we'll reach out to you at phone number. So that's one of the fields from the form. If that number is incorrect, please click below to revise your entry. And here I have the revise entry button. You can see I've customized the language that shows up for that button. So it says edit your information. They click on that. They see all of the information that they've shared already, but they can say, oh, that's the wrong phone number. Let me change my phone number and then submit, and they're good to go. So again, no need for them to have to call the dental office or the dental office to try to get in touch with them and not be able to. They can do that automatically right here from the form, and you can see that revision shows up here as well. Okay, so now let's go back to emails and we'll talk about the rest of emails. We've talked about how you can edit text and change the overall layout of emails. First thing I want to point out with emails is that there are two different types of emails. These are enabled by default. You can always remove them if you don't want them there. So you can see as I'm hovering over, I already used that pencil icon to show you how to edit. You can also clone from here. So if you want another notification email with different settings, you can do that. Same thing with the autoresponder. And then the last option is to delete those entirely. Absolutely can do that, up to you. The two different types of emails are notification email. So that is an email that goes to the account owner. So you, presumably, when somebody submits your form. So it's an email that you get letting you know you have a form submission. The second option is an autoresponder. So that goes to the person who submitted the form as a record of their form response as well. Both of these go out automatically. Again, these are here by default. If you want them here, you don't have to do anything. If you want them the way they look by default, you don't have to do anything. But again, if you do want to remove, you can. If you want to customize those, look for that pencil icon to do that. We've talked about, again, editing the actual look of the email. You can also pull in form fields here. So if you're creating something from scratch here, you can pull in form fields from there. There are also fields or data points associated with a form that aren't fields that you're requesting on the form, like submission ID and IP address. So if you would like you or the recipient of the email to be able to see those, you can add those in here as well. They're not included by default. You can also customize the subject up here. So by default, the notification emails that you receive will have the form name and something else. So if you have a name field, it's typically the name field. So you can see what form somebody submitted to and the name of the person. So again, that can be completely changed to be whatever you want. And if you'd like to include additional form fields or swap out form fields, you can pull them in up here. So these are form fields for the subject. These are form fields for the body. This first tab is the email tab. There's also a recipients tab. So here is where you can control who's getting this email. Again, by default, the notification email will go to the account owner. But if you need to remove yourself or add somebody else, you can always do that. So for example, not a real email address, but there we go. I can add an additional person here to receive this as well. You can also change sender name and reply to email, and those will be, you'll have the option to choose from fields from within the form. On the advanced tab here, you can control more about what the content of the email is and when it will go out. So again, you can entirely delete these if you don't want them. But if you do want them when a submission is received or when a submission is edited or either of those, you can control that here. Once again, you have an option to attach PDFs. So again, that can be a PDF that is uploaded to the form. You receive that in email. It can be a PDF version of the form. It can be a PDF that you've shared with the form. You can attach any of those PDFs to the email directly. Otherwise, you can get them from within your Jotform account. Last thing I want to point out here, again, there are a couple of other settings, but other important option here is that you can hide empty fields. So if somebody skips a field, you won't see that in the email. I think that's especially useful. I know we all have very limited time, so being able to just see what's important and not have to see the rest of it can be very useful. So you can always toggle that on or off. So that is the notification email. The autoresponder email is almost identical. You can see the email looks a little bit different by default, but the content is all the same, just the layout is a bit different. Here for the email subject, it says, we've received your response for form title. So again, this is going to the person who submitted, letting them know that we received the response and here's what you submitted. So again, all of that can be edited in the same way. Under recipients here, by default, this will choose email from your form. If there is not an email in your form, if you're not collecting that as a data field, you can't send out autoresponders. And if you're collecting multiple different emails, you want to make sure to come here and select the one that you want this to go to. So for example, using that summer camp example, maybe a parent is registering teens for summer camp. Teens at this point in where we are in society have their own email addresses. You may be collecting the teen's email address and the parent's email address, but you only want this confirmation to go to the parents. So you'll want to make sure to specifically select parent email address here. On the advanced tab here, also very similar options. So when are they receiving the submissions? Are there PDFs attached and what are they? And also hide empty fields. So that is, those are all of your settings. Last thing I want to show before we have time for questions and answers is a couple of examples here. So let me close that one out. So I am now going to show you the autoresponder email and the notification email for the same submission. So first we're looking at the autoresponder email. This is the email that I have received as the person submitting a form. This is that real estate form that I alluded to earlier, but didn't actually show. I have not made any changes to this form. So this is the default look. Again, this is what a user sees when they've submitted, and it has, whatever information they filled out from the form. On the flip side, I've entirely customized an email for a notification email for me as the account owner to receive for the same submission. So I built this very festive, very lovely. Obviously, I have a background in graphic design, very nicely designed notification email here. I have built this using a table. So I've created a grid. Within that grid is sort of a subgrid that has the contents. This is like the top row of the grid, and this is the best email ever. It's in the bottom row of the grid. I'm still pulling in information from the form, but I've also included a logo or an image here. I've changed the colors. St. Patrick's Day is this weekend, so I thought that this was appropriate. So you can see this is something I've created from scratch, but still serves the purpose of showing me as the account owner what's been submitted. All right, so that is the last thing I wanted to show. Before I put up the slide for questions, I just wanted to show the app that I created. So again, if you've attended other webinars in the series, this will look familiar to you. This is our feedback and resources app. So on this app, and I'll mention how to get to this in just a moment, I have 2 resources directly related to today's webinar about customizing thank you pages and emails. I should point out, I have shown examples using the classic version of forms. That's where all of the questions are on a single page, but we also have a cards version of forms. Um, the thank you page for the card version is a little bit different. Your options and where you'll find it is a little bit different. So if you're using card forms, this is you should definitely check this out. It will give you more information about doing the same thing I talked about, but for card forms. So these are for today's webinar specifically. In addition to that, additional resources from the series. Here is Jotform support. So if you are looking for how to do something and you don't know how to do it, or if something's not functioning the way you're expecting it to, or any questions about your account, we have 24/7 online support. That's jotform.com/contact. So you can come here from the app or just go to the website, jotform.com/contact, and you can reach support there. They typically respond very quickly. If you are looking for more introductory Jotform information, we have Jotform Academy with 3 courses available. Rolled that out about 6 weeks ago. So course just about Jotform generally speaking, a course about everything you need to know about forms. So this series is kind of not necessarily an abbreviated version of that, but some of the highlights from that and different examples, but much more extensive education in Academy, and also a course about your data management with Jotform. And then I already saw somebody asking about where the recordings are. We are recording today. We record all of our webinars. The first 3 webinars in the series are available here. So create your first form, widgets, integrations, and payments, and conditional logic. You can all just click here to get to those, or you can visit our YouTube channel. So if you just search Jotform YouTube, you'll find us there. You'll see all of our webinars, all of our tutorials, tons of video content from us. Last 2 things I want to point out, we don't have any more webinars in this series, but if you may be interested in Jotform Enterprise or you're a nonprofit, we have an upcoming webinar for nonprofit enterprise users. So you can click this to register for that. And if you have any feedback for me, things I can improve, things you liked, or you'd like to suggest or recommend or request additional upcoming webinars, there is a feedback form as well, fully anonymous unless you would like a follow-up. All right. On that note, let me go back to the slides. I will pull up our question slide. I have some time for questions, a little bit shorter than the past couple webinars. I thought this would be longer, so we have plenty of time to go through questions. If you have a smartphone, I know some people were wondering about using the QR code. So this is how you can get to that app I just showed. If you have a smartphone, you can pull up your camera and you should be able to scan the QR code from there, and then that will take you to the app. Or you can copy the link here below and fill out the app from there. And let me skim through questions. Okay. Okay, so yes, recordings. Yeah, so just once more want to mention our YouTube channel. So that is, youtube.com/the Jotform, or you can just search Jotform YouTube. You'll find this webinar later today. You'll find all of the other webinars in the series, all of our other webinars, tutorials, etc. You will see that soon. I see Kevin, you hope I feel better. Thank you. I appreciate that. This is my last webinar for a couple weeks at least, so I should have full time to recover before we get to more webinars in this series. I also see, Kevin, you're asking about sorting data in your table. And I assume you're asking about tables where all of your data is managed. So let me go out and show an example of that. Let me see if I have any examples in here that actually have data in them. Real estate open house. So for all of your content within Jotform, you have access to your data at any point. There are a couple of different ways you can get to that, but tables, I think, is the best way to look at all of your data at once, data in aggregate. So I've clicked on this real estate open house form. There, I can click submissions here to view the table. And this brings up the table. This is created automatically. So you don't have to do anything to create this. Jotform does this. You can see every column here is a field from your form. Every row is a specific response to the form. And you can organize this table in a number of different ways. You can always search or filter up here. So if you just want to look for specific data points, specific responses, you can do that here. From here, basically any of these fields, you can sort by any of these fields. So if you want to sort by name, there is a drop-down menu next to each column, and you can choose to sort in ascending or descending order. So I hope that answers your question, Kevin. Yeah, you can do that for any of these fields. We will be covering tables in more detail in our next webinar series. I don't have a date for that yet, but we will be talking about data management overall sometime in May. So stay tuned for more about that. I'd be happy to go far more into tables during those webinars. But yeah, I think that's something I didn't notice for a while, is that there is a full drop-down menu here of what you can do with each column, including sorting your entire table by there. Okay, so what determines whether there's a submit button at the bottom of the form or if there's a review button there? Let me go back to the form itself in the form builder. You can customize the button at your down here. You can customize that button to say or look like whatever you want. So the same way all of your fields can be customized. When you click on a form here, you have a properties menu and you can change button style and change button text. Also, in the settings here, the form settings here, you will have settings where you can control whether somebody can review data first. So you just want to look for that setting and make sure that that's toggled on. That definitely can be really useful, I think, especially in cards. So in classic forms, they should be able to scan all of their responses before they hit that submit button. In card forms, they're only seeing one question at a time. So there is an option to enable a review so they can review all their responses before submitting. And then once again, I want to mention in the thank you page, if you want to give people the option to revise their submission, you can always add the edit submission button. So you have students filling out a quiz and you want to give them the option to go back and change an answer. If they realize they got something wrong kind of right away, you can add that edit submission button, give people the opportunity to revise their responses. Okay, just looking through questions. So Barbara, I do see your other question about the pop-up. I'm not sure of that answer right off the top of my head. I can look into it, but I would also recommend support for that. I'll follow up with you after the webinar, and if I don't know the answer, I'll get you in touch with somebody. I don't think I'm seeing any other questions. Yeah, just skimming everything. Okay, looks like it looks like that's it. So if I did miss any questions, you can feel free to get in touch with me. I'm Morgan at jotform.com. Also, again, just want to mention the app there and also our support team. So I know a lot about the product, but our support team is even better versed in everything Jotform than I am. So you can always reach out to support. And again, they respond pretty quickly. I see a nice comment about support in here. So yeah, definitely recommend that. But also, again, you can reach out to me, Morgan at jotform.com. And on that note, I want to thank everybody for attending today. Thank you, especially if you've joined other webinars in this series. That wraps up our Form Builder Basics series. But as I mentioned, stay tuned for more information about an upcoming data management webinar series coming up in another month or so. I'll see you there. And I hopefully will be done with all of my coughing by then. So hope to see you fully healthy at that time. I hope everybody has a nice rest of the day. It's nice and sunny here. I hope it's nice and sunny where you are as well. And I will see you at the next webinar. Bye.